So we're going to see OKC versus Minnesota in the Western Conference Finals. This is a battle between two teams that have pretty good depth. OKC has amazing depth. They can easily go 9 to 10 deep, even this deep into the playoffs, whereas Minnesota really only plays 8 guys, but having 8 guys that can reasonably play at least 20, maybe even 25 minutes in a given playoff game is quite the luxury. I don't know if Minnesota will be able to stop SGA overall in this series, but they at least have some guys that they can rotate onto him to at least give him different looks, like Anthony Edwards, Jaden McDaniels, his cousin, Nickeil Alexander-Walker. And I could see Chris Finch and the Wolves deciding to use some of the strategies that Denver used against SGA, such as putting one on the ball and then having another guy roaming around SGA, almost like a QB spy in football. And I think the goal of this isn't only to get the ball out of SGA's hands, but to put it in the hands of guys that the Wolves are comfortable with making plays on the ball and shooting the ball, like Lou Dort, like even Chet Holmgren, and Jalen Williams. Jalen Williams had a pretty atrocious series against the Nuggets overall. I know in Game 7 he had kind of a bounce-back game from Game 6, but a lot of that was fueled by the fast break, and in the half court, a lot of his weaknesses still showed, even in that Game 7 where he played mostly well. And I think on the other side of the ball, Minnesota has to avoid some of these lulls that they can get themselves into offensively. You see like Game 1 against Golden State, they missed a ton of threes, they had a ton of turnovers. You can't really do both, especially against OKC, who is already going to create turnovers on their own. They don't need the opponent's help in creating some of those turnovers, because if they get that, you're going to look up at the scoreboard and they're going to be up by 20 points after maybe only being up 5 like 3 minutes ago. Now, I do think Julius Randle has been a big help in avoiding some of these droughts offensively for Minnesota. He's been amazing in the playoffs as both a scorer and a playmaker. He's used his strength well in the mid-post. That's been one of his stronger suits his whole career. But as a playmaker, I've been particularly impressed because he's been creating shots for Jaden McDaniels, for Naz Reid, even for Anthony Edwards. And I think if he can continue that against OKC, Minnesota will have a real chance to win. Also, given that Anthony Edwards can create his paint touches and shoot about as well from 3 as he did in the regular season. But I think that's probably a bit too optimistic of an outlook for Minnesota. OKC just comes in waves defensively, and they turn defense into offense better than basically any team in NBA history. Defenses this good don't just come along every year or even every 5 years. Scorers as good as Shea don't really come around this often either. And I think the combination of those two is going to propel OKC to victory in this series, although I do think Minnesota is a very worthy opponent and will give them some competition. But give me OKC in 6. Let me know your thoughts in the comments.